Greetings, everybody. Hello. Welcome to our event where we're going to discover, dissect, and sketch this plant. I know it looks carnivorous, but it's not, but it is toxic. So go ahead and say hello if you can in the chat box. And I'd love to know if you know what this plant is. Trying to look at my chat box here. There we go. Okay, great. I'd love to know if you can see me and hear me. So usually I talk about toxic or carnivorous plants during my holiday Halloween series, but it just so happens that this is blooming in my new backyard right now. And I happen to have gotten quite the rash from it on my hand for the last 3 weeks. That's why I'm wearing gloves. And I wanted you to be aware of it as well. But it has fascinating anatomy and pollination biology. So I can't wait to share more with you about it. And I'm looking in the chat box here. Please say hello in the chat box if you can, so I know that you're here. Okay, and so we are going to get started. Let me see where I am here. I've got a few slides to share with you because these plants are just amazing in the way they look. Got an error message here that's bugging me. I hope it's no big deal. Anyway, I know there's some people on here, so I know this is working. Anyway, I'm going to put this down for now and take off my glove carefully. Hello, thanks for joining me. Great. So we are going to be talking about this cool carnivorous plant. Wait, it's not carnivorous. It just looks like it. It's going to fool you. So we are going to get our mouse in the right place here. So in case we haven't met, hi, I'm Christine Elder, and I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist here in Southern Oregon. And I just moved to this area, and I have been gardening, and that's how I came across this toxic plant and got cut and stung by it for the last 3 weeks. And this is a picture of me in the tropics. This is an example from that family, the Araceae, also known as the arums or aroids. And this is called elephant's ear, which is native to Southeast Asia, but it's naturalized in a lot of parts of Central America where I was. And so thanks. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us today. Again, I love to see your comments. It gets kind of lonely teaching online if I don't know if anybody's listening. And please go ahead and ask questions. That's the most wonderful thing about having these live events is that you can ask questions. So I've got a few other people saying hello. That's wonderful. So I teach in person and online, and I like teaching people about every kind of crazy plant and animal in the world, including toxic or carnivorous plants, and every kind of animal from tardigrades to humpback whales. So we're going to keep going and get started here. So you are probably familiar with some members of this family. Many of them are ornamentals that you can grow in your garden or that you buy at the plant store. But you do have to be careful of them. And so this is an example. You're probably familiar with this anthurium, also called flamingo flower. And here's another example. This is a calla lily. And this is another one of my favorite plants, a very showy plant, alocasia. And here's another one. So just like the plants behind me, many of the members of this family are house plants, but they can be toxic. So you have to be careful of them. And so philodendron is one of them. Monstera is another one. So do tell me in the chat box if you've recognized any of these plants I'm talking about, or if you've grown any of them, the calla lilies or peace lilies, flamingo lilies, alocasia, these philodendrons or monsteras. And so this is a pretty big family. It's called the Araceae, also known as the aroids. And they have their center of diversity in the New World tropics, so Central and South America. And many of them are actually epiphytes, like actually philodendron is a climbing vine that lives in the tops of tropical trees in its native habitats. But there are species that are in Europe and Asia and Africa. And this one is in Southeast Asia. Now, I have taught folks about this one before during, I believe, last year's Spooky Nature Sketching Week. This is the Titan arum. And this is the largest flower in the world. It's actually an inflorescence. So it's a lot of little tiny flowers all put together. And this blooms just about once a year for only a couple days. And it often is blooming in different botanical gardens around the world. And you can find some of those online if you check later on. There are some blooming right now in the United States. So you can see how big this is compared to the people. But this gives a really good example of the anatomy of all the members of this family, like the pictures I've been showing you. Although a lot of times the house plants, like I see behind me, they are not going to bloom because they haven't really been given the proper conditions for blooming. So you might just see leaves, like in philodendrons and monsteras and alocasias. But others do bloom, and they have a very interesting bloom. You see this big kind of yellow thing in the middle, and that's the reproductive structures of hundreds of tiny flowers. And we're going to draw an example of those today from our local species here that is flowering. So that's called this spadix. And then surrounding it is that blood red part. It's kind of a cape around the rest of the flower, and that's called the spathe. And it's like a sheath. And here we have that here. It's like a modified leaf that surrounds and protects the rest of the flower. And we'll talk about why it does that when we're drawing it, because it has really interesting pollination biology. Oops, I was just touching. Oh, wait, what happened now? I was just touching the, oh, that's worked. Thank God. Okay. Ian, you said you have something like that at the Botanical Gardens in Edinburgh. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Very cool. Okay. So anyway, this family has this center of diversity in the New World tropics. There are 3,700 species or more and over 100 genera. And all of the examples I've shown you so far are in different genera. That's the plural of genus. So we wouldn't say genuses, it's genera. So yeah, the peace lily and those things, they're in different genera. But all of them have this unique spadix, which is the male and female flowers in the middle, and the spathe, which is surrounding it. And we will draw that together. So I'm just going to show you a couple more of these slides. You get an idea of the whole family, and then we're going to draw it. And we're going to actually draw the whole flower, and then I'm going to dissect it for you, and we'll look at some of the internal parts so you really understand the pollination biology. Now, tell me in the chat box if you join me this spring for any of my other Discover, Dissect, and Draw workshops. I have put replays of those mostly up on YouTube, I believe. And so we did the Easter lily, and we did the bleeding heart, and we did irises and a few other things. So I love to teach people about the weirder plants in the world. Now, here's a couple other ones that live in Europe. And this one is bright purple. So you see a lot of these have these kind of dark red or purple coloration, and that's to attract their pollinators. And so they have a what would you call it? A strategy similar to the Rafflesia flower that lives in Southeast Asia, which you may have drawn with me before. And so they are attracting animals, specifically pollinators, that are attracted to dead and rotting flesh, putrid, smelly flesh. And those are their pollinators, actually, different kinds of flies and blowflies and gnats and types of dung beetles. So they're attracted to that bright red or purple that looks like decaying flesh. In fact, one of these is called the dead horse arum because it smells so bad, smells like a dead horse. And these do look a lot like a carnivorous plant, like Nepenthes or the pitcher plants, which you may have drawn with me in the past as well, but they're not related. And here is actually a couple of examples that are native to North America. So, although many of them are native to the New World tropics or Southeast Asia or Europe, like this one that we're drawing today, there are a couple that are well known that you may have seen out in nature. And so, again, I love it if you can comment in the chat box. Tell me if you've seen these before in nature or in gardens. And so the one that's on the my left here, that's called Jack in the Pulpit. And again, you see how it's got a lot of this deep red coloration and even these lines through it, which makes it maybe look like, again, like dead flesh that attracts those pollinators. So that's called Jack in the Pulpit. So tell me if you've seen that before. That's on the East Coast. Now, on both the East and the West Coast, we have this other species that I see here on the right. Now, it doesn't have any dead flesh coloration in it. It looks a lot more like this one, but that's a skunk cabbage. And one of the reasons it's called skunk cabbage is that it smells really bad. And all the members of this family have really bad, stinky smells, some worse than others. That's why some of them are called snake lily or dragon lily or voodoo lily or the dead horse arum, because they all smell like really bad. And let's see. Ian, yeah, you said you have one. Let's see. Elizabeth, she said, this is your first time live. Wonderful. And yeah, so anyway, those are a couple of examples that actually live here. And you can see they both have that reproductive spadix in the center and the leaf-like spathe surrounding it. Now, another characteristic that a lot of members of this family have is that they can produce heat. And so they actually produce heat from this central area. And that can heat up the flower up to 10 to, I think, 50 degrees more than ambient temperature. Now, why would they do that? Well, again, for a few different reasons. One is that it's going to attract pollinators because they're going to be able to smell those stinky smells, those volatile organic compounds that are produced by the plant that make them smell like dead or rotting flesh. Right. And so also that warmth can draw insects because insects are cold-blooded and they like someplace to be warm. Okay, so let me see. And then, so we are going to specifically, again, talk about this one today and just a couple more pictures. And then we're going to go switch my camera to the one down here looking at my pencil and paper, and we're going to draw it together. So I hope you're ready to draw, but if you're not, stick around because you'll learn a lot just by watching, and then you can always watch the replay again if you'd like. So specifically the one we are sketching today is the one that happens to be in my yard, and it's the reason we're doing it because I did get a really bad reaction. So another common thing about this family that I wanted to warn you about is it's really toxic. Now, that's why I'm holding it with these gloves, and I'm going to wash my hands really well afterwards. But they have these calcium oxalate crystals in the flesh. Now, many plants have toxins like poison oak and a lot of the spurges. But this is a different kind of toxin, and it's calcium oxalate. And it can get on your hands if you're trying to weed them out of your garden like I was, because many of these spread by rhizomes, and they're pretty aggressive and can be quite invasive outside of their native habitat. And let's see. Oh, Elizabeth says Jack in the Pulpit in the Shady Forest was one of my favorites because it was so unusual. but she doesn't remember any smell. Right. So some of them might smell worse than others. And psychology asked, what was my major? I believe you're asking me and not one of the other people watching, but my major was biology. I have degrees in biological illustration as well as a master's in biology. And my master's thesis was on a local carnivorous plant, which again, these aren't, but they kind of have similar ways of attracting insects. So that's very interesting example of convergent evolution. So this plant has really distinctive leaves, kind of arrow shaped. They're quite large. I didn't pick a leaf because that's the part that gives you the worst reaction if you touch it. It's got a lot of this milky sap in it. And they're named a few different things. Some people call them cuckoo pint. Some people call them lords and ladies. And some people call them Italian arum because this is a common species in European woodlands. And their scientific name is Arum maculatum. And so, yeah, you don't need to see me. I can make this bigger here. There we go. So there's the close-up of the flower, like I had in my hand a moment ago. And you can see that really obvious central part, the appendix, and the whole thing is called the spadix. We're going to draw that in just a moment. And then it wraps closely around the rest of the flower. And a lot of members of this family, you never actually see the reproductive parts. They're hiding them to be able to attract and trap pollinators. So again, a lot of convergent evolution with carnivorous plants who are attracting pollinators for, they're attracting insects for a different reason. Okay. And then, oh, where's my mouse? I'm always losing my mouse. Okay. Now, I did take a photo of the dissection just in case I didn't have any good flowers for exactly today's episode, but thankfully I did. And today is actually pretty much the last day we have this blooming in my garden because they're wilting from the summer heat. But just in case, I took these photos already. And again, I've got gloves on. And so I want to warn you about this family. Again, there's many natives, there's many non-natives that are in gardens, and many that might be house plants. Now, they might vary in their toxicity. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. Not a doctor, that is, but you just want to be careful of them. Even behind me, I've got these philodendrons, and I've never had a reaction from them, but I really don't spend that much time clipping them and touching the sap inside their leaves. Okay. So it gives you a very similar reaction to poison oak, but it doesn't spread. But you do not want to eat it. Eating them or getting any kind of part into your digestive system can be deadly because those calcium oxalate crystals, it's like eating ground glass. And it can give you anaphylactic shock and swell up. So be careful. Okay. And again, I really love having people comment, so I don't feel alone here. So do tell me, again, if you have any questions. That's one reason I go live, is to interact. Otherwise, I could just film these at any time of the day or night, or just put them up on YouTube or Facebook. But I like to be live so that you can interact. We can interact together. Okay, so anyway, here's a close-up, and this is what we're going to do in a moment, is dissect this. And then just a couple more pictures. Yeah, so there I am dissecting it, which I'm going to do for you live. And there's even a little slug in one of these pictures in the lower right that I took outside and let it go. I love all types of animals and plants. And you may have joined me last month when we drew the very friendly, cute jumping spiders. Okay, and then so here is just the parts, and we'll draw these parts as we talk about them. Okay, so the male and female flowers, those are on the same plant, but different plants have different strategies. Some species have male and females on the same flower. Some of them have them on different flowers on the same plant. And other species have them on different plants. So like male versus female plants, like in the ginkgo plant, for example. So anyway, that's what we're going to see and draw in a moment. Just wanted to show you that. And then, of course, once they're pollinated, they create these big fruits, the unripe green ones like we have today in the studio. And then when they ripen, they're red. And a lot of times, bright red berries are eaten by birds. Now, that huge Titan arum I showed you, I showed you that was in the botanical garden. They grow only in the island of Sumatra. In fact, they're endangered. But those are pollinated, or no, not sorry, pollinated. Well, they are pollinated by these fungus gnats and beetles and flies that are attracted to the dead flesh smell and the look. But these berries are eaten by an endangered bird called the hornbills. And you may have drawn hornbills with me too in the past. I've taught over 300 of these live online workshops. So lots of them. So anyway, that's an endangered bird, and that likes to eat these. And of course, when it eats them, it takes them to a different part of the forest. And when they poop in the forest, those seeds are able to germinate, and it helps it to move that plant around. Because of course, they can't just trot off like a bird or a deer or something can. Okay, so Elizabeth asked, what's the actual size of this plant growing in your garden? Well, here's the, actually, I think that was actually the last slide. We can get rid of that. Yeah, let's get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that. Yeah, and then we're going to get rid of, just a moment. Let me get rid of that. Okay, great. So this, you can see how big this flower is, and it's on a stem that's about a foot. So I'd say that the leaves and the flowering stems can be about 2 feet tall. And again, these are native to European woodlands, but they are kind of fancy and interesting. People do plant them in other areas, just like that elephant's ear I showed you that I was with in the tropics. That has been cultivated in the New World tropics, even though it's from Southeast Asia. So anyway, I'd say a couple feet. But yeah, these grow through rhizomes, and so they can spread very quickly out of the place you might have planted them, kind of like bamboo. They can be quite invasive. Okay, so I think that answered your question. And let's see, Spirit Priestess, I love that. You said hi, great. And yeah, again, ask any questions. I'm looking here at the chat box. So yeah, now who is ready to sketch? What I'm going to do is I've got a couple different papers for fun. I've just got some white paper here. And I've got some toned papers here, which I love drawing with. And I even have a couple of colored pencils in case we do the berries. So tell me in the chat box if you have art materials with you and what you might like to use. So next, I need to get the other camera here. This takes a second here. So here's the other camera, and I got to stabilize that, else it will fall. And then let's see, you're going to go like that. And then it's all plugged in. Right, and I'm going to get rid of this. And now I'm going to share that. So extra camera, just one moment. Webcam, share, add to stage. There we go. So now you don't have to see me anymore. Okay, so we've got it perfect. Good. And then a lot of times I like to have, yeah, I'm going to start with this one. And what am I going to start with? Whew. I'm trying not to touch this with my hand. Yeah, and again, this is almost healed up, but it's been 3 weeks of feeling like poison oak. And I actually had to go to the emergency room finally the other day, and I got some steroid cream. So that helped a lot. Okay. And so what are we going to do? Oh, no, I'm going to start with this. So anyway, it doesn't matter what materials you have. It's more about drawing however you want to draw. And the whole idea of the drawing is to learn about your subject. So it doesn't matter, what your drawing ends up looking like or anything. It's all just about the process of learning by drawing. Let's see, is this thing straight? And then let's see, sometimes I have my little value scale here. And if you've joined me before, you've heard all about value scales and kind of thinking about where the sun is coming from and my viewfinder. But we're not going to talk too much about those things today. Okay. And Elizabeth says you've got colored pencils, maybe watercolor. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do a few drawings. First, we'll do this intact flower, and I'm going to do it. Again, you can use anything you want, but I'm going to start with a pencil and then do some charcoal. Again, if you don't have these, that's fine, but maybe my techniques will give you an idea of media you could use another time for fun. Okay. So, and the finished product isn't that important as what you learn in the process of just watching it. Now, this one's a little bit too big. I think I'm going to use this one. That's a better size. That one's the one we'll dissect. Okay. This one fits on the table there. Wonderful. I'm going to take this off right now and just be careful. So what we have here, what I like to do is just draw kind of a line showing where my whole drawing is going to be. That's kind of the central axis of the plant. And then we have this surrounding leaf-like structure. Anybody remember the name of this? And it kind of goes like that and like that and like that and like that. And then it's kind of overlapping here for fun. And then over like here and inside and a little overlap there. Fun. Okay. And then the outside of it kind of comes here. And then here's the flower part we're going to dissect and like that. And then I'll just get rid of this first try line. But I try not to do too much erasing in the beginning. Okay. And then we see the top here. That's and we see that one of the little gnats. That's cool. We'll see those in a moment. Okay. And so this is the top, and that's called the appendix. Okay. So I hope you can see that pretty good. I don't know if my lights are bright enough or too bright, or I never really know. But anyway, so then the next thing I like to do is I really love working on this toned paper because you can really focus on where the light spots are and the dark spots. And you can do it really quickly if you have black and white charcoal. And again, use whatever you want. The whole idea is just to look at this a bit and understand its structure more. And so if you're just working on white paper, it's kind of easy to kind of forget about the highlights. And so I like to intentionally think about where the highlights are coming from the sun and also just kind of from the wetness of this structure. And you see it's really shiny here from being just, it's not wet, but it's shiny like an apple is. And then it's shiny on top here. So I could just really quickly just kind of think about where those lights are with some of this white pencil. And then it's kind of streaky in here. And again, I'm just going quickly. I like to teach people how to just be light and loose and quick as if you're in the field, or maybe you're at a botanical garden and you don't want to get too fussy. You just want to have fun. And then this central part is lighter than the surrounding areas. So I'm going to make that a little lighter. And that's why I use this sun icon because I like to kind of think about where more sun would be. You might see a bunch of the little gnats coming out, and we'll see why in a minute. But if I put my sun here, maybe I'll just decide, wait, I don't want to, I almost drew right over the gnat. Then we would say that there might be a little bit more highlight inside the space on this side if the sun was shining over here, right? and maybe a little bit more on this side and top of the appendix, the very top of the spadix. Okie dokie. And then we see some little bit of highlights here, and then in the center of this rounded area. And you can't really tell here, but this leaf kind of wraps around. It kind of goes like this. So I forgot to add that. So there's a highlight kind of along the edge here. And then there's a shiny part on the center top of this stem. Okie dokie. So that's why I love working on toned paper with white charcoals or pencils. And then we can leave the middle value that is the paper as our middle value on the plant, and then just quickly add some shadows with our charcoal. So I'm going to add some shadow in here because this part is sort of folded over, and maybe a little bit more shadow on this side because this is being shaded by the sun. And then maybe some down here where this is overlapping. But see, we're not trying to make a botanical illustration here. Just trying to show a little bit of our three-dimensional form, right? Any other comments, or are you guys drawing with me? Okay, so I'm going to put this part in the shade because it's kind of under this overlapping spadix base of this, spathe. And then we have some of this is shadowed probably. And let's see, the sun's coming from this way, so I'll add more of a shadow on this side of the stem than I do on that. Okay, how's that look? I'm kind of looking at what I have here. And I could just add a little bit more for fun if I wanted to. And you can spend a lot of time on this if you want some other time. But see how quickly we did that. Again, this is the Arum maculatum. Do I have the right? Oh, you can't really see that. This is the Lords and Ladies, or cuckoo pint, also known as Italian arum, Arum maculatum. I don't know if you can read that. Good. Okay, how are we doing? Are we following along? So this is kind of like in the interior, and yeah, there. So I think that's good enough. That's just fun start. Now you may have seen my link that I put in the chat box that if you are a member or become a member of my membership, where you get fresh content and master classes every month, and meetups like we did today on Zoom, you get a bonus handout of some high resolution images of this family to practice sketching. And that's one of the many benefits of becoming a member. Okay, so how's that? Tell me in the chat box if you followed along to that. And then we'll start the dissection. Who's ready for dissecting? I know some of you guys are brave because last month, if you remember, we were doing the spider and you guys wanted me to feed the spider the housefly, and we did. Anyway, sorry, this is in my face. But anyway, we are going to dissect this now. So tell me if you're ready for that. And then we'll draw those parts and I'll talk about the pollination And then lastly, we will draw the, yeah, I don't want to handle it again, but we'll draw the fruit. And that's where I might bring out my, my colored pencils. Okay, so nobody is commenting. Now you can always take a screenshot of this as well if you want to. Okay, so now I'm going to actually switch to this other paper so that you can just see really clearly the structures. And I'm going to put my glove on. Where's my other glove? Oh, well, I'm just going to be careful. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is, oh yeah, we were going to dissect the bigger one, weren't we? You see how much bigger this one is. So when they're first coming out of the ground, they're not open. They're just like a tube. And then after a few days, the whole thing opens and then they get larger and larger like that. Isn't that amazing? Oh, that's right. I got to fix this. I have this dandy little thing that can lock. Yeah, there we go. I think that's, yeah, that's locked now. And then we can also zoom in a bit. See if I remember the zoom in. There's all these instructions here that I can never remember, but we're going to zoom in. Let's see, the plus. It's one of these pluses. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Woohoo. Okay, so I'm going to actually, no, let's see. Let's just see this whole thing, and then we'll do a little dissection. So I'm taking off some of the spadix. Maybe I will get my other glove on. Just a moment. What did I do with the other glove? I'm going to be careful. I'm going to just use this. So I'm going to tear this off of the smaller one and see what we can see. Oh, wait. Now look at this. Isn't that crazy? Okay, what just happened? What do we have here flying all over the studio now? That's crazy. So there's all these little fungus gnats. So I think I told you before that different species of these arums attract different pollinators. And often if the species is that red flesh color that looks like rotting flesh, they're going to be attracting larger pollinators like flesh flies and blowflies and various dung beetles, because those animals are thinking that the plant is actually dead flesh that they can lay their eggs in. They are not coming to pollinate like a hummingbird would, where they're getting a reward of nectar or pollen. There's no reward. They just think there is. Okay. And so, and again, some of the species make heat, and they make that from this appendix part. And this can be like up to like 90 degrees. And that would be helping to dispel into the air the volatile compounds that smell like a dead horse or some other kind of dead rotting flesh. So anyway, these guys are attracted here to the scent, and they also think it's warm and safe, and they might be wanting to lay their eggs in here. But they're, of course, this plant is not native to here. I'm not sure what pollinates this in its European native area, but it's a pretty small plant. So it's probably a small kind of fungus gnat like this. Okay. So anyway, we've got a whole bunch of those flying all over the place. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this other one and we'll draw this. What I'm going to do, because I told you we were going to dissect, I'm going to really carefully cut off some of this leaf-like space so we can leave the rest of it intact. We're going to make like a little window. Isn't this fun? And again, tell me in the chat box if you've seen anything like this before. Oh, there's a big old slug in here. Poor thing. I hope I didn't hurt him. Let's see. I think I'm going to take him outside. Maybe the slug is eating the fungus gnats. I don't know. Okay, so take a look at that. And that's what we're going to draw together. Let me take this poor little slug outside. Go out, be happy. I put the slug in the raspberry bushes. We actually have raspberries that we've been harvesting the last couple days. We're so excited. Okay, so are you guys still here? No one's said anything in the chat box lately. I don't know if you guys are still here, but let's actually start drawing this and talking about the pollination biology, because I actually studied pollination biology for my master's degree. And I just think it's fascinating. And if you've, again, joined me for some of the other projects, some of the other species we've drawn together. Then you know I love sharing. There we go. Oh, good. Spirit Priestess said you're still here. Wonderful. Great. Okay. So now I think I'm just going to use, what am I going to use? Pencil first, I guess. I guess I'll just use my trusty old pencil here and then this pen maybe. Okay, so just like our drawing before, we still see this protective big space, which also helps to make the flower more obvious. And then we have the stem of the flower, but we're going to focus just on here so that we can talk about what these parts do. So I'm just going to, let's see, I'm just going to draw this little, I'm just going to kind of draw it life size. So we just got the little stem here and then sort of our window we cut. And then we've got this part that goes out here with the cut window and sort of like this with the window, right? Okay. And so then we have this central area, and I could just sort of first just have a big rectangle that kind of just shows where that's going to be. And we're going to add the details. Yes, great. Elizabeth, you're coloring. Wonderful. Okay. So this very top part is kind of expanded like a bulb. And then it gets skinnier here. And that's called the appendix. To append means kind of to add on to. And so that's the very top, actually, of the male flowers. And then what we have is, you might notice this part right here. And it's a bunch of these little spines. They're not sharp. And those are actually sterile male flowers. Okay. And then there's this other section here, which is kind of yellow and kind of like a lot of circles. And this is the fertile male flowers. And this is what actually makes the pollen. Just like, you know, if you join me to draw the Easter lily and those huge, bright, burnt sienna pollen grains. Okay. And then there's another skinny part that goes down here. And then another spiny part that looks almost like this spiny part But it would look a little different if you could look at it under the microscope. And these are sterile female parts. And then at the very bottom, we have some bigger circles. And, you know, we're being a little bit symbolic here. And that's the fertile female flowers. And those are going to become the berries, just like those green and red berries I showed you. Okay, so they're going to become this. All right. So what happens, really fantastic here, is you would think, why are there these sterile parts and why are they all spiny and stiff? So, well, what happens is you've got those little gnats. I'm going to draw a little gnat. That's my gnat. Oh, you can't see him. That's my gnat. And he's going to fly in here. And he's attracted by the warmth or the smell, again, depending on the species of arum. But they're going to come down here. And as you see, there were hundreds of them that come by here. And what they're going to do is they are going to come down here and they're going to be trapped by these stiff spines for a day or two. And that's why when I opened it up, they were all trapped inside and I let them go. So those stiff spines keep them from leaving, because what the plant wants to do, we've got these gnats all over the place. The plant wants them to hang out down here and rub the pollen from the last flower they visited on here, because these flowers are what we call protogynous, which means first female. So that means that when they come down here, these pollen grains aren't active yet. Otherwise, this would just be self-pollinating, right? And that's no good. We don't want to reduce the genetic diversity. So these fertile male flowers are not ready yet. They're kind of sleeping and waiting. And so what happens is the gnats come down, and again, this in different species, these might be blowflies or fungus gnats or some kind of dung beetle that's thinking that they can come down here to the warm, smelly place and breed. So the plant, it keeps these spines really stiff for a couple days, that traps these pollinators in here, and they're just going to be kind of going around in circles like a rolling skater rink trying to get out, and they're going to be rubbing the pollen. We'll just say that this one has some pollen grains on him. That's some yellow pollen grains. And those are going to come down here and they're going to rub on this receptive female flowers so that they can mature into these berries. Okay. And so then after a day or two, these sterile male and female spiny parts will relax and they will then let the gnats out. Okay. And then as they come out, then these fertile male parts are going to be releasing pollen just in time. So when they come out, they're going to be releasing pollen. And then these female flowers will be done getting pollinated from a different plant. Does that make sense? So they're keeping themselves from being self-pollinated by not having their male and female parts receptive. Well, like, you know, if an animal is in heat, that means they're receptive to being impregnated, right? So when you have lots of types of flowers that have both a male and female kind of living in the same house at the same time, you don't want them to be receptive at once. So yeah, first, anyway, this gnat is going to come with the pollen from the last flower, which hopefully is not closely related. It's going to drop the pollen here on the female part, and it's going to be trapped for a couple days so that it can do that. And then this female part, once it's fertilized, the males are going to start making new pollen that then this new pollinator is going to take someplace else. Does that make sense? So kind of complicated, huh? So you can see that these ovaries are still pretty small, but they're going to get bigger. Are there any questions so far? Now, again, we're talking about the Araceae family, huge family with 3,700 species, many of which live in the New World tropics. But not all of them do this exact thing. Some are a little bit different, but you see a lot of them do have these colors inside that look like flesh, that are attracting animals that either eat flesh, or they're attracting animals that want to lay their eggs in flesh, that they're really deceptive. Okay. So then, anyway, the next thing that happens is that these seeds get larger. Well, they're a fruit. So each of these is kind of like a corn kernel, a corn cob. You're probably going to be eating corn cobs pretty soon for this Memorial Day weekend or 4th of July coming up. And that's the same kind of idea where there's a whole bunch of female parts. And as they get pollinated, they're going to get larger. And you've probably eaten corn on the cob that wasn't properly pollinated. And maybe some of the kernels didn't get fertilized, so there's nothing there, right? Whereas this one got fertilized really well. Now, it's kind of interesting because a lot of times if you have a non-native like this, it's not going to be able to get pollinated because it doesn't have the right pollinators. But obviously, these gnats are close enough, the ones that are in here in this wet area, they're closely enough related, I guess, to be able to affect pollination. And so these will eventually turn red, like the photo I showed you in the slideshow. And then they will, they'll reproduce. Yeah. So anyway, let's see, what can I do for fun? Let's see. Dorothea. Oh, Dorothea. Oh, I know you. Hi, how are you? You said amazing pollination process, right? So anyway, for fun, if I just use my pen next, this is a Fudenosuke. A lot of times I'll use a pen out in the field because I don't want pencil to smear. And then sometimes I may add colored pencil or watercolor to it. But so basically, what we have are all of these maturing fruits. And there's this little brown spot in the middle of each one. And that's kind of like on the corn kernel, where you know how each individual corn kernel had an individual silk attached to it. That was actually the area that the pollen has to land on to fertilize that individual fruit. So anyway, if I went back to drawing this, so I got a stem here and I kind of ripped it here. And then it kind of goes up on the side here, and then I ripped it off here and like that, just for fun. What a mess. So then, yeah, you just have all of these fruits. And a fruit usually means that it's a pollinated flower that may or may not have more than one seed in it, but these are each individual seeds. And I'm not being too careful. They're a little bit different sizes and shapes. And again, the main reason I like to draw things is not necessarily to make a beautiful picture, although I can do that if I need to, but when I'm in the field or maybe at a botanical garden, it's just fun to be looking at something and observing it. And then, yeah, noticing that in the center of each one is one of these brown spots. It might not be in the center, it might be facing away from you more. But again, that's the exact area that the pollen had to go inside to fertilize and make these seeds. And oh, our timing is just perfect. I'm so glad. So yeah, these might be, green right now, but just like most fruit, like a green bell pepper, it's eventually going to turn yellow and then red. A lot of fruits are red because that's a signal to fruit dispersers that they're sweet and ready to eat. And then again, the disperser, like a bird, is going to eat this fruit, but not ruin the seed. The seed will be going through its digestive tract and coming out whole and able to, create a new plant. Because plants can't migrate. And I'm just going to make these be ripe seeds for fun. Thanks, Suzanne, for joining us. I know it's getting late for you in Portugal, but I think we're just about done. So you saw most of it, but I'm just going to, add a little bit of ripe fruit color to this. And when I'm working with colored pencils, this is actually on watercolor paper I'm using. I'm using my friend's book here, a wonderful book if you want a book. Is this one by Roseanne Hanson, Nature Journaling for a Wild Life. I really suggest you check that out. It's a great book. Anyway, she has some blank paper in the back of it for you. So when I'm doing colored pencils, I like to kind of layer the colors. I was doing this with kids just a couple days ago. We were drawing hummingbirds. And it makes it more realistic when you layer some colors. So, I might just start with this orange, and then, maybe I would add some more red here and there for fun. And maybe I'd add a little bit of yellow. This is my pen, mixed media. Anyway, we're just getting started here. We're not going to do this whole thing, but you can see if you had colored pencils, if you layer them over each other, they get nice and creamy, and they get to be a richer, more interesting color in the end than just drawing something straight. Like instead of using orange, I could have layered yellow and red together. And then I might even do a, purple. And if I wanted to shade, I don't have it right now, but I could do like a dark purple in the shadows to make these more three-dimensional. Yeah. So, oops, wait, sorry. Here I am. Great. Okay, I'm going to take this off. And so it's been exactly an hour. I'm so glad that I kept you for just an hour, as I promised. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed learning about this interesting family of flowering plants that's toxic, that has this interesting spathe and spadix, which has heat-producing abilities and makes volatile organic compounds and often red flesh color to attract various pollinators. And there's lots of species that are in the New World tropics, but also some that are native to or endemic to Southeast Asia, Europe, or South Africa. And speaking of South Africa, that area has a lot of succulent species that live nowhere else in the world. And I will be teaching a succulent class. It's going to be a paid master class on succulents because I happen to grow a lot of them and love them. And I love Africa. And it's so fun to talk about plants that are endemic to certain areas, like in Africa. So thank you so much for joining Cynthia and Suzanne and everybody else whose handles I can't pronounce. But if you found me through my newsletter, go ahead and check that out. Check out the links. And again, if you're interested in having the high resolution downloads of this workshop, like many of the workshops I've done in the past, those are exclusively available inside my paid membership, like my friend Suzanne here in the comments is inside of. So she'll get to download that for free. So that's my monthly membership. It's called the Nature Notebook Club. And we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary in a month from now. So I'm going to be doing a lot of promotion to tell people about the club and grow it larger before I raise the price on the first day of summer, which is our annual first anniversary of the club. So anyway, if you're a member of my monthly membership, you get lots of perks. You get a whole library of my sketching and journaling and painting tutorials, as well as monthly meetups like we actually did earlier today, and monthly master classes where I go really deep into certain topics like insects or birds or nests or things like that. So yes, Suzanne said the Nature Notebook Club is great. Yeah, so if you're interested in it, check out my website at christineelder.com/membership. And I also left the link to that in the beginning of this chat box, which I'm not sure if you can still access, but I've got links to it in my newsletter and on my social media and that kind of thing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed learning about this plant, and at least I feel like I got some use out of having to deal with this terrible rash for the last 3 weeks, which is finally getting better thanks to modern medicine. And I hope I've warned you a bit about this flowering plant family, which is fascinating, of course, in its pollination and anatomy, but is also quite toxic. So you just want to be careful of it, or any plant that you don't know of, be careful of handling it before you've identified it. All righty. Great. Well, I think that's just about it. It's actually 1 o'clock now. We've been going for 60 minutes as I promised. So I really hope you enjoyed learning about this crazy plant that we drew and discovered and dissected. Okay, so take care. Have a wonderful day and wonderful Memorial Day. We want to honor our veterans like my father was and my grandfather. So have a good weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you around. Bye.